Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the webinar. We've got a fabulous webinar for you today, and a very timely one at that. The webinar is As Social Distancing Begins to Ease, Learn How to Reopen Your Channel Marketing Programs, and I'm sure that's something that's top of mind with all of us at the moment. Just how do we cope as things begin to ease up? But before I introduce our speaker, just like to run through a couple of housekeeping issues with you. So first thing, we will welcome questions at the end of the session, and there are two ways to ask a question. The first is, as you can see on your panel on the right-hand side of your screen, you can virtually raise your hand. If you do that, we'll then be able to unmute you and you can ask the question live. Alternately, there is a question box on the panel, and feel free to type your question into the panel. As I said, all questions will be answered at the end of the webinar. So I'd like now to introduce our speaker, and his name is Mike Moore, and he's the VP of Channel Sales at E2open. And Mike was formerly a channel and field marketing professional at Microsoft, GE Healthcare and Progress, but also has seen the channel from both sides, as he's also worked for 3 channel partners. So Mike really understands both the vendor perspective and the channel partner perspective, which I think is really valuable on the topic he's going to be talking about today. He's also author of one of the only books on channel marketing, Marketing Multiplied, a real-world guide to channel marketing for beginners, practitioners, and executives. And he's currently working with E2open's channel customers to provide advice, coaching, and best practices on the strategies and tactics associated with their channel programs. So let me hand over to Mike.
All right, thanks, Rod. And I'm going to go ahead and get my camera going today, since we're all dealing with the virtual world and working from home and all that stuff. We try as hard as we can to make things a little bit more personal, especially in webcasts and live events like this one. So thank you, Rod, for the introduction. Thanks for the opportunity to speak today about a topic that's definitely on my mind and in the work that I do with our customers here at E2open, and of course, many of you as well. So our agenda for today, let me go ahead and forward the slides to, we'll get to the agenda in just a minute, but let me just take a quick little pulse check. We'll do a couple of polls. So Caleb's going to throw up the first one just to ask you, are you noticing any type of slowdown in your channel marketing activity already? Are you seeing partners perhaps putting things on pause? Certainly if they had face-to-face events planned, those are going to be on pause, but in general, are you seeing any kind of slowdown? So if you want to go ahead and click off on one of the responses there, that would be great.
I can see a lot of people clicking in at the moment. We'll hold the poll open for a few more moments. So please do dip in and pick one of those answers. Got a few people that still haven't answered. So if you could,
and you know, nothing scientific here, right? This is just, you know, your gut. What does your gut tell you? If you've measured it, then that would be great to know as well. But any kind of sense of it would be great.
So we'll close the poll in about 10 or 15 seconds. So if you haven't voted, now is a great time to do so. So keep pressing those buttons. Give it 5 more seconds and then we'll close the poll out. So if you haven't voted, if you're one of the few that hasn't voted at the moment, this is your last chance to do so. Excellent. So Caleb, if you could show the results, that would be brilliant. Mike, if you'd like to comment on those.
Yeah, I think, you know, so we're seeing the majority of people are saying, you know, slow to very slow, or some sitting in the middle with no change, obviously. And then very few saying that things are getting a little faster. So certainly if you're in a faster mode, I'll kind of talk about that as one of the subject areas where we do see the potential to go a little faster in some ways, depending on your solution area. But I'm not surprised by what I see. Rod and I both participated in the Club 50 portion of Channel Focus last week with a lot of channel leaders. Heard similar things, that people are seeing slowdowns, and we'll talk more about that as we go. So, all right, we've got one more poll before we dive into things. So if we can put that one up, please, Caleb. So the next one asks, how are you engaging channel partners during the pandemic? And this is a multi-select, so you can, if you're doing training, if you're running programs with them, programs would be things like demand gen programs, campaigns. Are you launching any new incentives or continuing existing incentives? Or are you backing off, or they're backing off and there's little to no engagement? So if you want to go ahead and click off one or more of those options, just to give us a sense of what's happening in your business.
And again, as Mike says, don't just pick one. If you're involved in more of those, keep clicking. Again, we've got the majority of you have already voted, but if anyone who hasn't voted would like to come in now, we'll give it a few more seconds before we close the poll. There's still a few of you haven't participated in this one, so please do.
Yeah, this is your shot to provide a little input before I drone on for the better part of the hour that we're getting into here. So if you and you know, of course, this is these polls up front are a little selfish. It just gives me an idea of who's here and kind of what's on your mind, so that I can try to tailor the presentation. So appreciate your input on this. How are we looking at this point, Rod?
We're good. I think we're good to show the poll. So Caleb, if you could throw up the results, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, so good distribution, I think, around training programs and incentives in terms of what people are doing, you know, almost even kind of values, with just a few of you saying little or no engagement. So that's helpful for me to see. And you know, a lot of the recommendations that I'm going to have are going to go across these different areas: training, program, and incentives, and what to do if you're seeing little to no engagement. So good kind of balance. I think that's good for the poll results, Caleb. So what we'll go ahead and pop back into now is the presentation. So here's what we're going to talk about. I'm going to do a bit of an introduction just to give you a little bit more about myself and kind of where I'm coming from and what's happening with me, quite frankly, because it seems to be what we're all doing is kind of checking in with each other as we're all home and quarantined. I'll talk about kind of my view of the current state across buyers, partners, and brands like you. I'll talk about when and how to determine the timing of reopening, or when it's okay to do things. And again, this is my take. I'll outline what those first steps are to take and how to establish the new normal. All of this, I should say, by the way, there is no one playbook for everyone. What I'm going to go through is a series of questions that I ask myself when I think about this topic, when I talk to our customers, when I hear from our Club 50 members within the Channel Focus community, and reading that I do across the industry. So this is one person's take on it. These may not be the answers for you, but at least it'll give you some things that you can take back with your team members, with your organization, with your executives, and ask these same kind of questions. What's going on? What should we do about it? When? And what is something going to look like, at least in the near term, of the new normal? And as Rod mentioned, Q&A at the end. Feel free to submit those as we go so you don't lose your questions, and we're happy to get into it there. So the first piece is, this is a little bit about me and kind of my motivation. Right now, we are quarantined here. I live in the Boston area in the suburbs with my wife and 3 kids. My wife is actually a school nurse, and so she's off work and quarantined at home with all of us. We have a high school senior, Megan, who's on the left. She had a drive-by yesterday with a group of her teachers, socially distant. They came in many vehicles, but putting out lawn signs for all of the seniors, wishing them a happy graduation and those things, because we don't know when and if they're going to walk across the stage and receive a diploma. Our middle one is our 13-year-old, believe it or not, with the size of him, but he's in 7th grade and ready to transition from middle school up to high school next year. He's just, you know, missing his friends and the ability to get together and play sports with them. This is baseball season for him, and he's missing that, but you know, playing a lot of video games and getting out in the yard, thankfully. And then our oldest daughter is a sophomore at Mass College of Art here in the Boston, right in the city of Boston. And she's had to come home and try to figure out how to do a semester of art college at home. And so her room is turned into an art studio and a classroom and a Zoom room and all those different things like it has for many students across the country. So we're doing well, we're coping. Thankfully, we have Teddy, our about a 1.5-year-old golden doodle. He's turned into really kind of the family therapy dog in a lot of ways. He's a great dog and gives us a reason to get out and exercise and walk him several times a day. I think the dog's never been walked so much in his life. And then finally, for many years, we had Red Sox season tickets and loved going to Fenway Park. This year, with our second daughter starting college, I decided to take the year off from season tickets, give it a break. I didn't know, obviously, we were going to have this unfortunate event happen here and be stuck at home, but we really love it being at the ballpark, and that's a great shot of Danny sitting on top of the green monster watching a game last year. So we really enjoy all the things that you and your families enjoy and just getting out. So we're all in this this situation, and it's kind of how we deal with it, how we work through it together as a community is really what life's all about right now. So moving on to our part of the presentation, kind of talking about the current state. There's a blog that I've been reading for years, a guy named Mark Schaefer, who is he's a marketing keynote speaker, he's an author, he's a blogger, he's a marketing consultant, and he wrote an article in, this one goes back to March, as you can tell from the URL at the bottom there, so kind of middle of March, and he wrote a blog article called How Do You Sell in a Coronavirus Environment? And the piece that really stood out to me, and I'm going to get my marker here so I can kind of highlight some things. How would you sell to someone at a funeral was the question that he asked. And really thinking, that's the mindset that people are in right now. Obviously, many of us have been hit by this virus in some way, just taking away the freedom to move and being quarantined in home. Many people have future plans where you were going to go on vacation, you were going to go to a concert or a show or a sporting event, you were going to go somewhere. And for those of us who work hard and do what we do in work, and you look forward to those vacation weeks or those trips, everybody's kind of living in the present because there is nothing scheduled. There are no airplane tickets that, we've canceled all those trips. So people are in this sense of grieving and loss, and it brings, I think, to Mark's advice in that post, a sense of thinking, what can you do for a grieving friend? How can I do something for you? What can my company do for you? How can we ease your pain? How do we show sincere compassion and work to build relationships? Part of it is having meetings with people and doing video calls and taking the time up front to say, how are you doing? How is your family? How are you getting through this? And showing empathy and talking with people in that way. And I think many of us are doing those kind of check-ins with people all the time. And I think, how do you do that at scale? How do you bring that warmth and empathy to your partner channel is obviously one of the things that we're all trying to do. So just with that a mindset that no matter whether you're a customer, a channel partner, or someone working for a brand like all of you, everybody is in this environment. There's the Facebook graphic I think people are sending around, kind of, we're all in the same storm, just, different ships, right? So everybody's dealing with it a little differently. But understanding that mindset and kind of where people are at, let's talk about customers, partners, and your company. So customers, the way I go back to it is think about, in college or high school, wherever I first learned about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, which if you've never studied this, it's worth Googling. You'll see it in different posts that people are writing about kind of COVID stuff. But Maslow's hierarchy of needs looks at, people have basic physiological needs. They have a need for safety. They have a need for food, water, shelter, those kind of things. Once you get higher in the hierarchy, then people start to have a need for other things. But people are always concerned about the most basic and fundamental needs. Many times, of course, we take it all for granted. But this is a time when obviously people are very focused on that. Can I get groceries? Can I get the basics? Can I pay my bills? Can I take care of my family? Those are the things that people are very focused on. Once people clear that hurdle and think about their other needs, this is when customers continue to carry on and kind of work from home and do what they can to keep their business going, to keep their company going. So the question to ask yourself is, are there things that with what people are going through, particularly in tech, where many of you sit, are there things that your company can do to help customers weather the storm? Are your products and services relevant now? Are they more relevant than ever now? If you're in the security category, If you do business continuity, disaster recovery, remote workplace solutions, mobile solutions and applications, mobile networking, those things, this may be the best time ever in some ways, as awful as that sounds, but you may be the most relevant solution that customers need more than ever. Now, how you approach that, we'll talk about and kind of give some guidance as we go. But if you have a need that can help, or if customers have a need that you can help address, that's okay to acknowledge. The way you go about it, again, we'll get into. Are there near future needs? So if you start to think about when customers start to recover and come out of this and go back to the workplace, go back to events and conferences, go back to life, are there things that you can do to help them with that transition of what's coming? And then whatever the new normal is. So it's a bit of a self-inventory and always starting with the customer in mind, even though you go through channel partners for many of you. It's thinking, what can I do to anticipate where customers are going to have needs? And then how do I provide that help and support? Starting with the customer's mindset. For channel partners, financial stability is the top issue for many of them in terms of what's on their mind. So there's a good friend of the channel focus community, Larry Walsh. He runs the 2112 group. Larry's been around in the channel for a long time and has been doing surveys and producing research for the last couple of months. And one of the things that he uncovered in his research and documented in a very insightful way was this issue around cash flow and financial stability is a big deal for many channel partners. They are, obviously there's a lot of variety. When we say channel partners, there are very big companies and there are very small companies. The long tail of the partner channel, many of them are, they're very short on cash. They don't have a lot of stability when it comes to that. So if their customers are short on money and stop paying bills, even if they have a contract, even if they're a managed service provider contracted for something, if they can't get paid, then they're going to have trouble paying their people. They're going to have problems with continuity. So again, this is kind of the partner version of the hierarchy of needs. Is they're looking at themselves and trying to figure out, do we have enough money to carry on and pay our staff? Do we have to furlough workers? Do we have to eliminate positions? So once they clear that hurdle, again, then they're thinking, how do we meet the needs of our existing customers? How do we continue operations? And that's a key piece for them that they need help and support with. And then finally, I think partners think about new business and growth, right? So if I'm worried about keeping payroll going, serving the needs of the existing customers, trying to keep my team motivated and secure and stable, then I'll think about new business. But now is a really awkward time to sell. And so partners have that mindset, let's kind of hunker down and keep things under control. Many of you are seeing that with the slowdown in the demand gen and that kind of activity that we surveyed about in the first poll. So here is a slide that Rod and the team last week, this Club 50 group that I mentioned. So Club 50 is kind of a select group of channel leaders, about 50 people as the name indicates. And Rod put together a series of surveys and had some discussions during the call that we participated in last week. And when he said, what's the number one most important request you're getting from partners? You can see what the responses were from the team. So more than or almost half, right, of people are clicking off and saying marketing and sales help and support is where they need assistance. So these are executives, channel sales, marketing, partner program leaders at brands like your companies saying that's where they really need the help and support. So if you work in those roles, this is a great opportunity. Partners are asking for support. Your executives have realized there's a need and an opportunity there. It's how we all kind of pull together to make this happen. And that's the opportunity. So final piece here and kind of understanding the current state is thinking about your own company. The first thing is everyone's watching what you do and how you do it. So if, I've received some really bad demand gen emails in the last couple of weeks, I guess I'll say, without naming who sent them to me. But one sent out something that basically said, I won't get into it because I don't want to reveal who it is, I guess I'll just say it was really pushy. It was really about you need to push partners to go harder and faster and drive pipeline and not let this whole coronavirus thing get in your way. And I thought that is way too much, at least for my taste and my sensibility, right? Now is the time to be helping, not selling. And so everyone is watching what you do and how you do it as a company, as a team, as a partner business within the company. And so just knowing that people are going to remember this and thinking about the future and kind of that perception is important. So you have to do what feels right, what feels natural, what feels appropriate for this time. I also believe you need to acknowledge that things aren't normal. When I'm getting webcast invitations, because that's all that we're getting right now, right, is online events, uh, and the company hosting the event doesn't relate it to what's happening, and it's just like any other webcast and any other topic that you'd see during normal times, I kind of do a double take. Like right now, the content that I'm interested in and kind of hungry for, and that's why Rod and I agreed this was a good topic to put in front of all of you today, is I'm interested to know what everybody else is doing. How are people dealing with this? You know, we're in this time period, nobody really knows how long it's going to last. You know, conditions are going to change in different parts of the world at different times, but that's what I'm interested in. We can get back to regularly scheduled programming later, whenever later is. But right now, I think it's about doing things that suit the time frame, the needs of customers right now, and part of that is acknowledging that things aren't normal and that we're all doing our best and we're all going to work through it. And finally, on that point, I think this is a universal statement for the channel as a whole, but empathy is key. Empathy is trying to understand what other people are going through, right, and try to be sensitive about that. And customers and partners are the audiences that we care about. We obviously want to take care of our team too, but applying empathy to the situation will go a long way. So that's kind of current state. Now let's get into where do we go from here? So how do we determine the timing? You know, there will be announcements in the news about restrictions being lifted and quarantines being lifted and return to the workplace and those kind of things. It really, you know, there's a lot of variety in that. So let's dig in a little bit. The first one being local laws. So it goes without saying, many of you work for public companies, many of you obviously have very strict rules and principles, and obviously we all must comply with the law. The world is very different though, right? So think about the law that applies to you and kind of what you can do and what legal orders and rules are in place, but also where customers and partners are. And understand that things are going to be a bit all over the place, right? A lot of diversity in what we're seeing globally and where people have returned to work. And obviously that can change quite quickly. Things could be back to normal a bit, and then all of a sudden there's a spike in cases, and then they go back to quarantine. It's just the reality of this world that we live in now. So having an eye on that and always doing a quick compliance legal check, understand where we're at from a legal point of view, what's permissible is obviously something we need to check in on. So taking that and understanding that we always must do that, I mean, that's really no different than today. It's just obviously the conditions are different. The next piece though is I want you to think about demand signals. So going back to customers and where they're at and what they're dealing with, are there things that you offer that can help customers right now? Again, going back to Larry Walsh and his research at 2112 Group, he did a survey and asked channel partners, what are they hearing from customers in terms of need? And it was things like security, network, you know, remote work solutions, business continuity, disaster recovery, all those kind of things everyone is thinking about and dealing with. No one anticipated taking their entire workforce and sending them to work from home. So if there are things that you do and provide solutions in this category right now, this is the time to make those available, obviously, and to formulate some campaigns with some sensitivity, and I'll talk about that in a minute, around kind of how you put those on the table in front of customers. I'm asking a question here on the second bullet. What listening posts can you set up to hear those needs? You know, if you're unsure or you want to have, you know, we've all got quotas, we all have activity plans, we all have results that we have to drive for our shareholders, our stakeholders, our businesses. Being able to cite research like Larry's report, it's helpful in being able to justify some of these campaigns. It can actually sometimes be used in marketing campaigns. You can go out to customers with an offer that says, our research or third-party research, or however you work, our research indicates that customers have a need for this because of the current work from home situation. We believe that company XYZ is uniquely positioned to offer this, and we have a global network of channel partners who can assist. That's a great campaign to put together. It gives you some validity instead of just kind of throwing it out there because you think it would be good to sell to people right now. Being able to do something that is research driven and substantiated by customer need, I think, is a better way to position that kind of campaign. The other piece that I'd ask you to consider is as customers start indicating interest in moving forward with solutions and continuing to shop, especially if you have things that are super relevant right now, how can you eliminate friction in any processes? Zoom has a well-documented case of kind of how they rose very quickly as soon as everybody worked from home, which, by the way, for those of us who have been around for a long time, if you're like me, you probably looked at them like, wow, everybody's saying Zoom. Nobody's saying GoToMeeting. Nobody's saying WebEx. Nobody's saying Skype or anything. Everybody was saying Zoom. So good for them in many ways, right? But Zoom had a quick ascent, had some security issues and those kind of things, and got kind of some negative press. They're trying to manage through it and kind of come out of it, obviously. But the thing that the Zoom CEO and the team there did very quickly is immediately, as soon as schools were sent home, immediately said Zoom is free for the rest of the school year to any school district that wants to use it. Of course, that brought a lot of people to the table, a lot of new users and those kind of things. But they quickly eliminated friction. They just said, you know what, why cut a deal district by district? Let's just make it free to all who want to use it. And they set up an enrollment process to make that happen. So the question for all of you is, in your processes, either with partners, with customers, how can you do something similar to eliminate friction and just make it super easy? Giving a product away for a period of time, giving a freemium model so that there's something free for now for everyone, but if people want to buy and get the up-level service, they can do that in a very, very simple way. This is an opportunity to go to your executive team, to go to your operations team and get things done and cut some of the red tape. So why not seize the opportunity and make some changes, take advantage of that now? So the final piece on determining timing, I'll call leading demand. And this goes back to that statement I made earlier about helping, not selling. So how can you help people? Part of that, if you go back in kind of classic sales training, like I've taken, activating latent pain. So this is the people who didn't know they had a need for your solution. Now you're activating it, but you're doing it with helpful content, not with a sales pitch. So if I'm talking about the things that we offer or the kind of problems that customers have in the world, the way that they solve them, and by the way, we happen to be one of the companies that provides that solution, and I'm doing it in a helpful way, then it's perceived as being helping, not selling, right? Customers will look at that and say, that's something I didn't know we had a need for. Now that I see this, I realize it could really help our organization. And you can end up on a fast track from a procurement standpoint. Really, it's an opportunity. The question, the third bullet here around how you can lead the recovery, again, comes back to with the tools that you have in your toolkit as a company, what products and services you offer, how can that help as customers try to identify what the new normal is? And sometimes, I remember when I worked at Microsoft, we would release all these products and 1,000 products a year and just like a whole stream of stuff coming out all the time. And you have certain use cases in mind when you build the products of what you think customers are going to do with them, and then they go and do something completely wild and creative with it. I worked on Microsoft SharePoint for a long time as a product and really focused in on it when it launched and for a few years afterwards. People did some really creative stuff with SharePoint as a product. Who knew, right? So think about your own product. Are there some outliers, some odd use cases where people have taken the product and done creative things with it that all of a sudden in the mindset of a world in recovery becomes a really exceptional use case that many people could take advantage of because it's really unique and fits in. So I'm a bit ambiguous here with it because it's really hard to see. I think it really requires some creativity on behalf of your teams and your products and your partners. But looking at your product set and just being realistic about where you fit in the world and how you can help people now and into the future is really going to be key. Does it mean that customers aren't shopping for normal stuff anymore? No, we're actually seeing, even in our own business here at E2open, many of our sales cycles are continuing. Customers are trying to carry on the best they can. They're trying to put the right tools and processes and operational frameworks in place like they were going to pre-pandemic. And that's great. And we obviously want to keep that going. So in many ways, your customers will pull you along. They'll tell you when they're ready to keep on going. They'll tell you when they're going to come back to the table and talk. And obviously your partners are the ones that are sitting there in most cases having those conversations. So I think you need to move with the market and move with the demand. but I think there is a way to lead that and kind of sprinkle some seeds for planting, essentially, to help bring you out ahead of the curve, especially if you have things that are relevant to what customers are going through. Okay, so what are we going to do and when are we going to do it? What are some of the steps that we want to take? We'll break it down and first talk about how to prepare. If you look at your scorecard and kind of wherever you are in your fiscal year, whether your calendar year 20 or fiscal year 21 has started, you had some internal priorities and goals that you had looked at for the year. It's time to do a quick check-in and do a reset on those. So given our current circumstances, current budgets, current revenue, current, what are we going to do to reprioritize? We might have been pursuing 6 or 10 priorities for the year. What are the 3 that we're really going to focus on and double down on? And then once we reset priorities, how are we going to simplify those processes? Again, I think there's an opportunity to cut some red tape and to look at the administrative and bureaucratic kind of processes and figure out how can we simplify those things. One thing we've seen some of our customers do around MDF programs is this final bullet where they've changed some deadlines, right? So if we had said partners need to commit MDF based on this program fund by this date, and then the next quarter was going to start and then this date, they've slid all those dates out to allow partners more time to do planning and to execute activities against those budgets. Makes a lot of sense, right? Forcing people to spend MDF money right now because of some deadline that was set based on the way normal business works, this is not normal again. So how do we reset that, relieve some of the pressure? Now, at the same time, there is an opportunity to move forward, and there are some things that we would want them to do with MDF in particular, and I'm going to talk about that in just a minute, but this is really key to think again, how can we simplify how we do business with partners, how partners do business with customers? Can we make things easier here and use this pandemic essentially as an excuse to make it happen? They might be things, quite frankly, that you were thinking were too difficult and too full of friction before, and now you've got a good reason to go back and say, hey, we just need to simplify this. And then test and measure, right? So look at, does it actually have the impact you wanted it to have? And then how do we actually make that a measurable result that tells us whether or not it was worth doing? And go provide that feedback to your stakeholders and be willing to change, right? So that's a big piece of this. So internal prep, really important. The next piece is around enablement. And when I say enablement, a lot of that is kind of equipping partners with knowledge, information, experience, and tools that they need to be successful. So the first one is you typically have a training catalog you put in front of partners and offer them sales, marketing, business, technical related training courses. How do you take all of that and prioritize the 5 that you need to know right now? One of our customers put together a really specific training program. They're packaging it up over a 90-day period. They're doing a lot of instructor-led training and kind of bringing those courses together for people. Really smart, right? So how do you prioritize the training? Don't leave it to partners to go into your training catalog and figure out what to do. So I would just say, take a look at that. The second bullet here comes from, again, a training course that I took when I was early in my career. This guy, Mahan Khalsa, who's fantastic. He ended up selling his training business, went to be part of Franklin Covey, ended up on the Microsoft partner circuit for a while doing Microsoft partner conference sessions. But one of the Mahan Khalsa isms that I really hang on to is this quote, intent counts more than technique. And we see this, if you're a parent, you see this with your kids every day. They're trying to do the right thing and sometimes things don't go well. Usually in my house, it relates to cooking in the kitchen and things spilling. But they're trying to do the right thing. Their heart's in the right place. They're trying to do the right thing for people. They're trying to help people, and sometimes it doesn't go well. The reason I bring this up is that even things like doing a webcast like this one to partners, or doing a daily office hours call like I'm recommending in the next bullet, these things, we don't have to have highly produced, very slick broadcasts. I don't think we really ever needed to anyway, in my personal opinion. I think you can get away with the home office background, the webcam, the headset, not spending a lot of money on production. There's a Zoom level standard right now for doing this kind of training and enablement. You can get away with a lot, and I think, again, that it's okay. And quite frankly, it shows a more human side of things. Luckily for me, Teddy, our golden doodle, is outside because my wife knew I was doing the webcast from home, and all 5 of us plus the dog are home, and she took him outside so he can have some peace and quiet. But if my dog barked in the middle of this, I don't think anybody would be surprised, and I don't think anybody would think too badly of me, right? It's just kind of what we're all dealing with. So again, there's a certain empathy and sensitivity and awareness that we're all dealing with right now. Bring that into your enablement, try to do the right thing, but don't worry about production, don't worry about overdoing it. So daily office hours. Now, daily may not be necessary, but office hours, I think, are a really good thing, at least weekly, to have these kind of check-in calls with your partner community. So if you were going to do a weekly partner marketing check-in call and call it office hours, I mean, we ran a series prior to E2open. We were a Veritech. We've been acquired last year, now part of the E2open team, which has been fantastic for last year. But Peter Thomas and I at Veritech used to run this office hours marketing series of webcasts. We'd interview channel people for an hour, usually half hour, try to make them snappy and quick. We'd take some questions live and then we'd wrap it up. You can bring that into your partner marketing program, into your partner program, into your channel sales program. You can make your leaders available because they're not on the road, right? Everybody's at home. So what if you pop on the line, promote it to partners, hey, every week we're going to be on Mondays, on Fridays, on Wednesdays, whatever day of the week it is, for an hour. We're going to tee up some questions, just kind of what's happening, what we're seeing, some intel, from our executives on kind of what they're focused on. We're going to talk about some programs that we think are timely and relevant, and we're going to take your questions. And it's going to be more faces than slides, right? We're going to, fill up and do kind of the talking heads thing versus having a bunch of slides to throw at you. We're going to check in with you. We want to hear how you're doing. That type of format right now is super, super relevant. People are not looking for more slides. I know we're doing slides here for this webcast today because it's more than what would make sense to just talk for an hour straight. Having the slides is kind of a good support tool. But if you can do more of the face-to-face with partners, and they may not be online, it may just be a few faces from your team, but letting them see you, hear you, get to know you a bit, goes a long way to building that trust and loyalty and empathy with your partner channel. And then finally, as it relates to enablement, I think collecting feedback and providing frequent patches. Now, I'm saying patches like software terms, but it could mean changing up some of the content or dropping in a new module because you're getting a lot of partner feedback. They could use more of something. I'm going to talk about a video tool later on in the something new section, but there's easy tools out there that you can use to create another quick module or to record a quick Zoom call with somebody where you're interviewing an internal expert about something, and then you turn that into a piece of content that you drop into this program. So there's a lot of those kind of opportunities. And again, I just encourage you to be free and creative and not worry too much about the production value, or we have to run this through legal and finance and compliance and all these 50 checks. I mean, certainly follow the processes you have to, but if you're just trying to do daily office hours with partners, you should be able to have those kind of ongoing conversations with them. All right, so equip. This final piece here, I'm talking about packaging up resources. Many of you have partner marketing centers with different demand gen tools and resources. You've got a partner portal with sales kits. Think about how you package all of that up. And I literally mean if you drag it all together and put it into a zip file and put it somewhere easy to get, where is your COVID-19 resource center? Can you make a quick page on one of your tools that lets partners grab the most timely, relevant stuff? Don't go out to them with a message that says, come use our partner marketing center and run a campaign. Not helpful right now, right? If you have, come to our partner marketing center and run campaign X, because campaign X features solutions that customers are going to want to know about right now because of what's happening in the world. That is a helpful message, right? And then say, and we're going to do a webcast about it tomorrow where we're going to talk you through all the campaign deliverables. We're going to talk about all the assets in there, and we're going to talk about exactly how to use it to make your customers' problems go away, or to help alleviate some of their pain and concern. Whatever the story is, but package, prioritize what you want them to do in the short term. And then the final bullet here, I talked to some of our customers who are doing things like, a lot of partners do face-to-face events as a big activity for them. And, those will come back at some point. Right now, everybody's making a shift to online events and webcasts and these kind of things. I think what I also see though is people are saying, I really want to use this as an opportunity to convince my partners they need to learn how to use digital marketing to drive demand for their company, which I totally support. I mean, we have a product that does channel marketing automation. Obviously, we want partners to use those tools and to figure things out. Depending on the results the partner is trying to achieve in the short term, it may or may not make sense to push too hard on the partners to try to learn something new and then apply it themselves right this second. So I would still enroll them in training and try to build some digital skills, give them some homework assignments that they can apply. But coming back to the MDF deadline extensions, right now what I might do instead is to package up agencies who can do digital marketing work with partners, kind of alongside them. They'll learn from kind of working with an agency, and then get some deliverables that are useful to them out of it, and they're paying for it with MDF. So let's have partners work with those agencies and you play the role of matchmaker to put them together versus trying to put more pressure on partners to learn something new and apply it. It's just really stressful on them right now, right? Again, if you have kids at home who are trying to complete schoolwork and learn how to be an online learner and they're used to being a classroom learner, you see it in your own home that it's a hard transition for people to make, especially when they're worried about other things. So think about your partners. Be gentle with them, right? Give them the tools they need. Like if they're ready for this stuff and they want digital marketing training and they want to participate in a boot camp where they're going to get homework and they're going to do real world stuff and they're going to run campaigns and they're going to send out social posts, cool. Give it to them, go, go, go. Just realize not everybody's going to be able to handle that. And that's where there are plenty of agencies, marketing agencies who are out there who would love to work with you and your partners to package up some of the things that they can do for partners, do in a very cost-effective way and a very measurable way, and give ultimately kind of the results that people are looking for. I think this is a great opportunity to build content right now. Partners are really bad usually at building content, writing blog articles, creating their own case studies and white papers. I would have agencies working with my partners to create a whole bunch of content right now that will be useful very soon. So in the short term, we want to see partners out there with fresh content. Let's make it now. Let's work on producing those blog articles and all those things now, and then publish when the time is right. Okay, we take a breath and a sip of water. I think Caleb has one more poll for us that we're going to pull up. So based on where you're at as a business right now, what is your greatest area of need? Is it partner engagement? Are you worried about building pipeline? Or are you worried about closing deals? Okay. So again, the interactive portion of the program.
Here's your opportunity to come in and participate. So please do vote now. I see a lot of you voting. We'll keep the poll open for a few minutes, just to give everyone a chance to vote. We got way more than half of you voted already, so let's keep those votes coming in. I'll keep the poll open for another 10 or 15 seconds, and then we'll show the results. So last few moments to get those votes in. So do participate, do click, and get those votes in. Okay. Last chance for anyone who hasn't voted. And Caleb, if you would like to show the results of the poll.
All right, so 24% partner engagement, 57% focus on building pipeline, and 19% closing deals. So, if you could choose all three, you probably would have chosen all three at this point, because I think these are the things that we're all obviously concerned about and working on. But building pipeline is what many of us are at, right? We're coming into, and we can go back into the slideshow, please, Caleb. The thing that many of us focus on, there's a blog article I wrote and I reference back to all the time about kind of the seasonality of kind of what we're, the way that the year works, right? So, here in the US at least, we have our summertime, we have the fall, we have the winter, the spring, right? Everybody has the seasons, quite frankly. But the way I think about it is you can't really fight the calendar. Like we're in prime time, like this is prime time for selling and executing with customers. And all of a sudden this hits. And now you're going to get into the summertime. Now, normally summertime is people are out, they're on vacation, they're taking trips, all those things. It's going to be a different kind of summer in many parts of the world this year. Then we kind of come back in the fall and it's hammer time again. Like we're getting busy up until Thanksgiving, kind of Christmas holidays, people lighten up. So there are these cycles of activity that we all get into during the course of the year. And, we're missing one of those seasons right now. So pipeline concerns, how we build pipe and get back to normal is obviously something that we need to really kind of thoughtful. And my take on this, as we're about to get into this final section on establishing the new normal, is what I've heard from our customers, what I'm seeing from research like Larry's and some other things that I'm reading, is that partners really are looking for brands to be prescriptive with them. And that's where I think that you can play that role in giving them a playbook, putting together some blueprints, kind of whatever kind of format you want to talk about, playbooks and blueprints and, guides or whatever you call them. But partners are hungry for direction. They look to you because in most cases, your company is much larger than theirs, and they think my brand partner has it figured out. I'm going to check in with them, see what advice and recommendations they're making about what we do, when we do it, how we do it. They're hungry for this stuff. So I think that creates an opportunity. I mean, they're hungry for that normally, right? But even more so now, they're very dependent on you. Just like, again, if you have kids at home, they're looking to you and your partner maybe and saying, how do we get through this, right? So everybody's looking for somebody to help them and to provide some stability. So there's an opportunity in that, and I think that we should take it, and I think that we should try to help people. So what does that mean? So first off, I think you need to think about the typical in-person event schedule that many partners put together. Obviously, conferences like this one, some channel partners host these kind of conferences or participate in large events like this one. Many of them hold small local events. So I think you need to think, what does that mean? When will the time come back where these are permissible again based on local laws? But then also, when are people actually comfortable traveling out? And what if that takes some time? I think you just have to be flexible right now and thinking about what are the alternatives. So producing an online schedule, like even the channel business here at E2open, we looked at it and said, we probably want to do a webcast every couple of weeks. And sometimes we'll host a webcast, and it'll be one like we had 2 weeks ago that Peter Thomas and I hosted, where we interviewed a couple of channel executives. We're doing this one now with Rod and the team and talking about channel marketing programs. We'll do another one of ours in an interview format in a couple of weeks. We feel like that's a good frequency to keep things up. So if I were talking to my channel partners, I would be saying the same kind of thing to them. What could you do every couple of weeks that's helpful? And this is a great opportunity to build an audience, and people start to know and appreciate your events, so that eventually when it comes back to time to sell and build pipeline through these conversations, people are excited and interested in it. I talked with a customer of ours yesterday, and they don't really have much in terms of webcast content that is available to partners right now. And I think that's an opportunity to come in, and even if it's not a sales pitch, but instead if you gave partners a kit that they could do an online tips and tricks session or online lunch and learn kind of events, those are really super easy to put together, quite frankly. The bar is pretty low in terms of content that's available and kind of packaging it up. And people are looking for opportunities to get together and socialize and kind of have a little bit of learning and a little moment of levity during their day. So that's great stuff to put it together. What's happening in the background is you're building a marketing database of contacts. You're building relationships, you're building trust with them. So again, when it comes back out time to build pipeline, we have an audience that's gathered. We have people reading our blog. We have people attending our webcasts. We've built trust. They know about Mike and his dog, the Golden Doodle, right? Like these are things that we're all comfortable with and we've gotten together. And now we can use that as a way to start helping and solving with our products and services. So think about the distance nature of this and kind of ask yourself that question. What if it takes some time for events and conferences to come back? What are my partners who rely exclusively on demand gen through events going to do? And how can I be very prescriptive with them? So that's kind of point number one here. The next part is, I think, and I've talked about this theme throughout and I've tried to live it. This is kind of how I operate personally, is how can we be digital yet human? And I noticed a blog article from On24 that I think is really super helpful, and I recommend you give it a look, and the link obviously will be in the slides that you receive. But there are 4 tips for a digital first approach. Not surprising, right? This is what they do for a living, is have this platform. They're recommending people adapt events, but don't cancel them. open up your experiences. And so what they're talking about there is a specific thing in their product that you can create almost like a virtual event center where people can come up and kind of snack on bits of content as well as the live event when you deliver it and the recording afterwards later on. And then, measurement and tracking and all that's built into their solution. So some helpful information here. And again, I think, how do you deliver digitally yet remain human? We're all getting a lot of emails that come out that have a lot of words in them. How do we make those feel more human? How do we make them feel more personal? And I think you can find those kind of experiences. This is one way to do that. The other one is there's a tool called Soapbox from a company called Wistia. There's another one from a company called Vidyard that we've worked with as well. The ability is to create short sales and marketing videos that you can create this kind of content to share with partners, where it can be, as you see this lovely lady here on the screen. She's doing a little screencast. The panel with her screen shows up next to her. You can do it as just a talking head as well. But this is a great way to create quick, easy video content at your desk for partners, training them to create this kind of content from their desk and share it. Soapbox is a free add-in to Chrome. Really super easy, customize content, share it. This is something, again, if I were like many of you working for a brand, working with channel partners, I would be having a little Soapbox class with my partners. And I would make them a Soapbox video to invite them to the training session. I would train them on how to use the tool. And then I would reward them if they recorded a Soapbox video and sent it back to me. And I would try to make it fun, because again, thinking about the world that we live in right now at this moment and what everyone is dealing with, we could all use a little bit more fun. And I like it when people send me stuff, send me prizes and cool things, right? So why not try to do that and kind of use this as an opportunity with partners? And it also applies obviously to the things that we're trying to do with them. So getting partners more comfortable with video, creating quick little, there's this concept of kind of information snacks that you can think about. How do I create little bits of content from bigger pieces of content as a way to entice customers, get them interested? So there is a method to the madness here, but again, getting people comfortable with being on video, doing this is really the key. There's also a sales approach that Wistia and others use where you can create in the thumbnail. I actually have a little whiteboard somewhere. I haven't done these sales videos in a bit, but here it is, my little whiteboard. I'll show you. So I have my little whiteboard here. And what I can do on my little whiteboard is write, "Hi, Rod Bapty," and hold that up. So when I record a Soapbox video, this will be in the thumbnail at the beginning, and I can use it as a way to send out a personalized sales video. So there are a lot of techniques, both sales and marketing, to using these kind of little video tools. People are stuck in the house. Great time to get them working on this kind of stuff, make it fun. Doing what's comfortable for them, right? I'm not asking anybody to create TikTok dance videos or any of that kind of stuff, right? Just do simple things. It'll be useful in the business. Part of that too is also saying, some partners don't have a great setup. This is something that I notice all over the place. Like, how many people are you talking to on calls these days who don't have a headset, who don't have a decent webcam? Maybe they're self-conscious about their background. I would probably take my top partners and maybe package this stuff up and say, hey, for partners who want to do more video, kind of set up a little bit of a quid pro quo. Hey, if you enroll in our program around doing Soapbox, I'm going to give you a video care package, which is going to have some cool stuff in it. That's going to help you produce this. And then for that, I expect you to do X, Y, Z afterwards, right? Kind of lay out what your expectations are. This is a really good opportunity, again, to show empathy, to show support for, helping, not selling, kind of what partners are trying to do, but you're literally giving them tools that they can apply to the learning and to this scenario of what we're trying to do. And then finally here, something new. So personalized direct mail. I got an offer from a company called PFL, the one who they make this shot that's on here, this box. They'll do direct mail where people can fill out a form and they very quickly get it in your hands, and it's personalized with a note to you, and it has an offer. You could do a through partner version of a campaign like this. And I think the best part, or kind of the point that I'm making here, is whatever those kits are going to be, so I try to find my mouse, it's obviously going to be shipped to somebody's home. why not create kits that are going to be fun and shareable? Like fill it with jelly beans and snacks or pretzels or something that the whole family is going to be excited about. That end customer who receives it is going to be excited to share it, and they're going to feel great about the channel partner, your channel partner, who sent it to them with your support, of course. So again, there's kind of everything old is new again, but getting things back in people's hands, connecting with them, giving them things to feel happy and excited about, it's the little touches obviously that can mean a lot. So finally here kind of point as we get ready to close and wrap up our time. And so if you have questions, certainly fill those in, and I'm happy to stay on for a couple extra minutes if we need to for questions. But health and happiness, really, that's the, look at this little boy and how happy he is. Wouldn't we all like to be happy and feel some hope and some happiness? And many of us do, right? So we have a lot to be thankful for. I'm sitting here in my house. I've got my family all around me, got my dog, got all of you. I'm happy, right? I can see this, and I know that in the grand scheme of life, this is one moment. We obviously want to be that hope and that happiness for others, and so there's a great opportunity here. So in closing, again, remember, people are watching you. They're coming to you for your leadership, your support. They want to see how you are handling this and giving them hope and inspiring them. There are things we can do to prepare for the recovery. All of you have solutions that customers rely on. How do you position yourself for that kind of growth and recovery and building that pipeline that you're all looking for? And then finally, helping, not selling. It's a great mindset to have all the time, but especially right now. How can you position your partners to be helpful and not selling right now, and really focused on the needs of customers? And with that, you'll find great success. So I wish everyone the best. We'll stick around for questions here as Rod pops back on, and just want to thank everybody for our time today.
Mike, thank you very much for some really, really terrific insights. I have a number of questions, so we'll run long for a little bit to take some of those into account. And the first question I have is, do you think partners and customers have COVID fatigue when it comes to content?
Oh, I think we definitely, you have to have something new or different that you're saying, right? Assuming that people are consuming a decent amount of content and news, especially in whatever category you serve, there's definitely the potential for fatigue. So I think that puts more pressure on the brand teams, all of you, to make sure that whatever you're doing is relevant. Don't put more noise in the system. Be relevant. Carve out your niche and figure out what is special or unique that you can add to the conversation. Otherwise, don't bother, right? Because you're just going to wear people down. And that's, again, people are watching and they're going to think, oh, they're just piling on with useless stuff. Nobody needs more of that. What is it you're uniquely good and special at? And try to be helpful with that.
Okay. Got another really cool question here. What are your thoughts regarding success metrics for marketing and sales during this period? How do you recommend they should be adjusted or looked at perhaps in a different way?
I don't know if they should be. I mean, your targets might be adjusted, but I think it's the same kind of things. We have a whole partner engagement model in terms of metrics. We look at reach, frequency, and yield. It's kind of an adaptation of a volume licensing set of metrics we used to use at Microsoft. But reach, how many partners are you reaching with your campaigns? Frequency, how often are they participating in the various activities or campaigns or tools that you put in front of them? And then yield is, what's the output of all of that? Essentially, are they publishing a certain number of landing pages, emails, scheduling events, and online content, social posts? And then what's the customer response to all of that? Are customers filling out forms, attending events, all those stuff coming back to them? So you can kind of build that model out and you use it in this time frame too. You should be looking at the same metrics. Like we met with a customer and did an MDF QBR with them. We saw year over year their MDF requests, the number of requests coming in are down 40% year over year for this 10-week period that we're in of kind of quarantine. So changing the scorecard, changing the metrics, I don't think necessarily makes sense. Adjusting your targets to take some of the pressure off and kind of be reasonable with people probably makes sense. But then figuring out, you may be shifting to the second half of the year things that you would hope to get done now. And so I think keep chipping away at it, obviously, but be realistic about what you can do. And if you have to adjust targets, then you have to.
Okay, and let's finish with one final question. how do your recommendations vary for different geographies? Because obviously different countries around the world are coming out of this at a different pace. There are different legislation in different markets. How do people take that into account?
A lot of the people that I speak to on a daily basis sit in global partner program, partner marketing, partner operations kind of roles. They partner up with regional folks, whether those are field marketing titles or partner business management, and whatever kind of different titles around the world. My recommendation is you need to internally kind of have that advisory council where you're talking together and checking the pulse of your different markets to see who's ready for what, and then trying to equip them with the tools. If you sit within a region yourself, then you're obviously directly on the ground kind of experiencing this stuff. But I think that let's face it, the world is a very diverse place under normal times, and different markets need different things. I think a lot of companies say, well, we need to be consistent across the globe and have consistency and blah, 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 blah. Well, it's not really the reality of it, right? The Europeans do things differently than people in Asia Pacific and the North America and Latin America, right? Like, there are differences already. So I would say respect the differences, embrace the differences, try to be supportive, and give different program resources what people need in the different markets, so we can all work at kind of the pace of customers and what customers are willing to go along with right now. It's going to be different. It's going to continue to be different. We're going to have more ups and downs. That's just what we know at this point.
Mike, on behalf of everyone on the call, thank you very, very much indeed for some terrific insights. The webinar will be posted online, so you'll be able to view that online. And very, very much thank everyone for attending today. And as Mike said, keep safe, and look forward to seeing you on another Channel Focus webinar shortly. Thank you very much indeed. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Rod. Thanks, everybody.